This past Sunday, one of the points I was making in the sermon was that we, as Jesus followers, need to just spend more time talking about Jesus with our friends, with our families, with our acquaintances, with anyone who we can. And so, what I want to ask today in this kind of midweek devotional time is, what is your favorite Jesus story and why? What I'd like to ask you to do is just to share that with us. You can just write in the comments what that favorite story is and what it means to you. Or if you're on Facebook, another thing that might be neat to see is record yourself or record one of your kids sharing what their favorite story is and just share that little video along with us on Facebook. We just get to have a chance to talk about Jesus. So, what is my favorite story? Well, it comes from Matthew's Gospel, the ninth chapter. It says, "And getting into a boat, he crossed over and came to his own city. And behold, some people brought to him a paralytic lying on a bed. And when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, 'Take heart, my son, your sins are forgiven.' And behold, some of the scribes said to themselves, 'This man is blaspheming.' But Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said, 'Why do you think evil in your hearts? For which is easier to say, Your sins are forgiven, or to say, Rise and walk? But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, he then said to the paralytic, Rise, pick up your bed, and go home. And he rose and went home. When the crowd saw it, they were afraid, and they glorified God who had given such authority to men." There's a few different things that happen in this story that make it probably one of my favorite Jesus stories. First, it starts off with when Jesus sees the friends bringing their this paralytic to Jesus. It says he saw their faith, and that kind of drives home one of the points I was talking about on Sunday. That faith is noticeable, or belief is demonstrated by our behavior. What we believe shows itself in our actions, and our actions reveal what we actually believe and hold to be true in our heart. The second thing that I really like is Jesus does the unexpected. He forgives sin, which is hugely important to everyone, but no one was expecting Jesus. And in reality, Jesus met the real need, not what everybody else perceived this man's need to be. He took care of the most important thing. Here's maybe a thought-provoking question along this line. What if that's all Jesus had done for the man? If all he did was say, Your sins are forgiven, and never actually healed him, wouldn't he have actually taken care of the more important problem? Wouldn't that have been enough just to have his sins forgiven? I think it's funny in this story where Jesus reads the minds of the scribes. It says he knew what they were thinking and what they were reasoning in their heart. This just kind of is the deity of Jesus kind of breaking forth through the humanity of who he was. And I love seeing those little moments where Jesus' deity is shown and revealed to us, and just knowing what the people were thinking. But he did go ahead and perform the miracle also. He shows the man and tells the man to go ahead and get up, reaffirming that his sins had been forgiven because he'd had the power to also heal him. And to take this lame man and for him to be able to walk, to free him from his bondage is a favorite part of the story. And then finally, all this kind of combines to prove who Jesus is, to prove his authority. It says, so that you will know that the Son of Man has authority to forgive sins, he does the miracle. It's funny, the accusation that the scribes throw at Jesus. They accuse him of blaspheming, which means either that he was claiming to be God when he wasn't, or another way to blaspheme is to not recognize something as God who is. And in this case, Jesus isn't the blasphemer. He's the one who's saying, I'm doing what only God can do, forgive, and reveals himself to us as God. The blasphemers in this story are actually those who deny Jesus' deity because he is God and they are failing to recognize that. So there's a lot of things going on in the story, from faith demonstrated, sins forgiven, Jesus' authority shown by his power. As we talked about, he was attested by God through signs and wonders and miracles that he performs, like the reading of the gentleman's mind, showing his deity. So all this combines just to wrap up in one story who Jesus is. And that's probably why it's one of my favorites. Blessings. Wait. 1 minute before you leave, I got one quick favor to ask. If you're watching us on YouTube, there's a little button down below called subscribe. If you would hit that for us, it'd really help us out, as we're trying to get to a certain number, which will help us reach more people, help us with our promotional event. So one way you could really help us is just click that little subscribe button. Thanks a lot. Now you can go.